Hey parents, what's up? This is Nate, and I wanted to shoot a short video about our upcoming series called Boy Meets Girl rather than have a big parent meeting. This February we'll be starting a new series called Boy Meets Girl. This series will be discussing the sensitive topic that affects each and every single one of us, but especially the teenagers in our lives. It's woven its way into the very fabric of our society and has infiltrated every major area of our media. It is wonderful and beautiful, yet at the same time can be confusing, hurtful, and ultimately destroy our life. You guessed it, we're going to be talking about sex. As the parent of a teenager, you have the unique vantage point of a front row seat to how your child and teenager interact with the world around them. As much as anyone, you see them interacting with a culture that is more sexually charged than at any time in our country's history. Movies, TV, music, the internet, magazines, and even video games perpetuate this hypersexualized world through which your teenager must navigate. In this environment, it is more important than ever for your teenager to know what the Bible says about sex and sexuality. But it doesn't stop there. Not only does your child need to know what the Bible says, your child needs to know how to effectively communicate what the Bible is teaching and how to apply that to their life, to make a difference in the culture that is opposed to their faith. I understand that sex is always a hot topic issue that often gets overlooked when it comes to church and what the Bible says about it. But I wanted to shoot this short video to specifically talk to you parents out there and let you know a few things about this series coming up. Here are some of the things that we'll be talking about during the series. What is sex? Sex outside of marriage, sex within marriage. Why did God create sex? What is lust, adultery, pornography, dating? How far is too far when you're on a date? What is true love? What are the stages of intimacy? Self-respect, low self-esteem, peer pressure, and how we can honor God with our bodies and relationship is by far the most important. I know a lot of these topics are very taboo, and almost every teenager has faced or will face them at some point. Here are a few things that I want you as a parent to know before your teen comes to this series. Number one, your teen doesn't have to come. Let me make this clear. We want your teen to be there, but they don't have to come. Let me explain all of this. The topic of sex and dating and relationships is very personal and private. Truthfully, it is something that should be a conversation that should be had for the first time with the parents as opposed to from their pastor. However, many teenagers will not hear anything about this topic of sex and relationships at home, much less God's design for it. For some other teens, the topic may do more harm than good. Perhaps talking about sex is something that will throw them so far off center and they will just be so embarrassed that they won't even want to come back to church. We don't want this to be the case either. We never want this to be we want this to be something that encourages your teens rather than hinders them. However, I do not want you to withhold your teens from coming because it may be uncomfortable for them. We're talking about sex and relationships. There's going to be some uncomfortable moments. However, it is a topic that needs to be discussed and shared, and what the biblical view of what sex is and why it's important. I want to inspire you and your teenagers and challenge them to live a pure and holy life, and sex is a part of that, no matter how much we want to look away from it. The second thing I want to tell you is we're not going to sugarcoat things. Many of you guys have had the sex talk with maybe your parents or grandparents or aunts and uncles. Perhaps you've had it with your own kids, and sometimes there's more awkward pauses and gestures and you-knows than there actually are conversation, than there actually are words coming out. And everyone leaves the conversation feeling confused and embarrassed. Science has shown that one of the main reasons that parents don't talk to their kids about sex and relationships is because it makes them uncomfortable. Uncomfortable saying certain words, uncomfortable when a teenager asks a question, even uncomfort with your own sexual past. This uncomfort leads to sugarcoating things and not saying things that need to be said and how to come across clearly. In this series, we're going to be saying words like sex, penis, vagina, intercourse, masturbation, and other words that get the point across of what we're talking about, rather than making ourselves unclear talking about the goods or the family jewels. Now, I promise we will not be vulgar or go out of our way to teach new terms or things to your sixth graders, but we want to be clear, and being comfortable with this topic is a part of that. So if you don't want your teenager hearing things like that, all of which will be heard from a fifth grade health class or a locker room, this would be a great time to pick up a new hobby for 4 weeks in knitting on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. But know that we want your team here. The third thing that I want to tell you is we are going to say what the Bible says. No more, no less. I want you to know that the lessons will not be based on my own personal experience or sexual history. It will not be based on public opinion or a certain political party or personal experience. Everything we will discuss in this 4-week series will be practical and biblically sound information that is designed to help your teenager grow closer to Jesus Christ. We will not be spreading old wives' tales or using scare tactics that scare your kids from ever having sex, but we will simply be laying out what God's plan is for their lives when it comes to relationships, marriage, sex, purity, and holiness. And as a youth pastor, this is the most difficult thing that I could ever ask, but I need to ask for your trust. During this series, we're going to be talking about sex and relationships, which is a very scary and difficult topic at sometimes, but can also bring up a lot of emotion. We're going to be splitting up into small groups led by youth staff, and through this time, we're going to tell our teens that what is said here is confidential. Our goal is to build trust within the group in order for the teens to feel like they have a safe and secure place to share. And because of the topic and the challenges, oftentimes teenagers will use this opportunity to share something private that they have never told anyone, including you as their parents. In order to maintain their trust, we have to mean what we say. And I want you to hear my heart. As a youth staff, if your teen shares something with us, we will only share with you what needs to be shared. I understand that this means I am asking you to trust my discretion when it comes to the word needs. Understand that our very first question when any teen shares something will be, have you told your parents? Informing the authorities and parents of immediate threat to a teenager or another individual will happen. However, if Johnny sits there and tells me that he kissed another girl and his girlfriend didn't find out, or that he watches HBO using his friend's account, or if Jane tells me that she flashed the boys on the soccer team, or she gave her boyfriend a hand job and asked us not to tell her parents, then we're not going to do that. These situations, however, are very different than situations of rape, molestation, self-harm, abortion, and pregnancy. If these teenagers are confiding in our youth staff, then we want to give them a safe place to talk and share, rather than having them keep it bottled up inside and eating them alive. I want you to know that I will be praying for you during these next few months. A series like this may provoke many questions by you or by your teen. I pray that you can have an open dialogue about this topic with your teenager, and you guys would be able to draw closer to one another as well as draw closer to God through this process. Please don't hesitate to call, email, or set up a meeting with me if you have any questions or comments, or would just like to talk a little bit more about what we're going to be discussing. I would be more than happy to set up and talk with any one of you about this. And I want you to know that I am praying for you, and I pray that God is going to do some amazing things through the lives of your teenagers through this series. God bless. Have a good one.